Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and Linux has a pretty massive problem. And I know it's kind of goofy when I make a video like literally a week ago saying Linux just took a pretty massive W, which it did. Things are getting better. But I'm talking about from a gaming perspective. Now, this is Rainbow Six Siege, one of my most favorite multiplayer games that I've ever played, okay? I've probably got thousands of hours, actually several thousands of hours across numerous accounts, and this is a game that I've been playing since year one. I've actually been playing this game for like 10 years. And I will be discussing this game in like a day or two in like a much bigger video, just because I have a lot of stuff to say about it, and especially that all of a sudden it's getting Rainbow Six Siege X, a 10-year update. It's crazy. They're about to rework this game, all right? Hopefully crazily. But there's one big problem with this game. I need that computer to play it. Why do I need a totally different computer to play one single multiplayer video game? Well, that's because, as you can imagine, anti-cheat. So one thing that I want to get into it, obviously I'm not here to just crap on anti-cheat solutions, but Rainbow Six, a game that pretty much relies on there being no cheaters. This is a game where one single bullet to the face is basically cause for death. And I know that's a shocking statement to make, but there's a lot of multiplayer games now where getting shot in the head like 4 times apparently is fine. But the point is, this is a realistic tactical shooter, okay? It really requires you to be on your actual toes in a gunfight. Now, this is the anti-cheat that powers Rainbow Six, and I've had my own problems with BattlEye, by the way, but I could only imagine a world without BattlEye anti-cheat. Rainbow Six would be fucking unplayable. Now, the thing about anti-cheat solutions is it's still not enough. Every day you'll play this game, you'll constantly see at the top right, there is a ban wave happening pretty much every other game that you play. There's just that many cheaters that love to play online video games, and cheaters are the reason that these kind of anti-cheat solutions have to exist. Now, one of the things about Steam is you can very easily see the top games at the moment. So Counter-Strike right now is the top game on Steam. Counter-Strike works directly underneath Linux because it's supported by Valve. Valve obviously supports Linux. This is not anything surprising. The second most played game on Steam, may shock you, is PUBG Battlegrounds. I have not played this game for probably like 6 years, but it has been played. At least right now, it's apparently 561,000 people are sitting on it, okay? It's got crazy daily peaks. And this does not function underneath Linux because of obviously the anti-cheat not functioning. And this in turn brings one serious problem. Obviously, games like Dota 2 work, Monster Hunter Wilds will work, Rust, I believe does work, but don't take my word on it, Marvel Rivals, I know works. Grand Theft Auto Enhanced does not work, neither does Grand Theft Auto Legacy. Banana, I'm surprised people are still playing this game. Split Fiction will work, Apex Legends will not. So one of the actual problems with Linux, and one of the reasons why people can't really adopt to it that easily, is because giving up some of the most popular video games is just not a doable option. Now let's forget about just software for a second, okay? Let's say you have software that doesn't work underneath Linux. There's a good chance that there's probably an equivalent alternative that exists that you can start using. And generally speaking, a lot of software works underneath things like Wine, which translate Windows software on the fly to Linux. Now, obviously, things like your Adobe Premiere probably won't work that well, and honestly, everyone really expected that not to work. But the thing about it is generally speaking, Linux is kind of there. I made a lot of videos showcasing how easy it is to get things like Linux Mint installed onto a computer, install all your applications, and start playing games. This whole venture effectively ends when somebody is trying to run a piece of software that isn't just unsupported, but actually outright hostile towards actual Linux users. And that's a problem that I feel like needs to be addressed. Otherwise, this penguin is not gonna fucking fly. Not that penguins know how to fly in the first place, but you get the idea. So Rainbow Six Siege, a game where as of 2 hours ago, 82,343 people have been playing. Me included, actually. I love this game. But the problem with this game is obviously it runs on that anti-cheat. Now the thing about this is, obviously, the solutions people use to cheat on their games vary pretty heavily, okay? Generally speaking, some of the shittiest cheats that are available on PC are cheats that you can just download for free off of some shady forum in the world. You can run that on your computer. It'll probably infect your computer, but it might give you access to aimbots, seeing people through walls. But most of the cheaters that I have actually been looking at don't really rely on some of these easy to detect cheats. And generally, a lot of anti-cheats can always dig those guys out and basically kick them to the curb. But the thing is, there are obviously cheaters that rely on some pretty crazy technology. So for instance, cheaters use things like DMA cards, which is direct memory access. So effectively, if you have a separate computer sitting next to you, you can basically read the memory of the computer you're playing the game on, computer A, and modify it or use it to basically find out where cheaters sit around it. So these cards cost around $170, $290 if you're going for the most primo degenerate pack. But again, to go down into it, they'll proudly advertise that they're beating things like Faceit Anti-Cheat, Riot's Vanguard, Call of Duty's Ricochet, which might as well not even exist because every form of protection on this, in my opinion, doesn't exist. BattlEye, Easy Anti-Cheat, it's all pretty much done. And so they give you a nice little diagram here to show you. That's your computer right there. Using a DMA card plugged into your computer slot, it will actually read on a second computer, and then you can actually plug in all of these aimbots and various other different cheating dudes and dads and basically get access to real scummy stuff. It doesn't matter what system you're playing on at this point, these people just have setups entirely dedicated to fucking ruining the online community. Now, I've made videos in the past where I've talked about, kernel level anti-cheats and why I don't like them. Kernel level anti-cheats are not a good solution to me. Kernel level anti-cheats allow, of course, actual bad actors to take advantage of the actual systems they design and use them in nefarious ways. Remember that Genshin Impact game with MyProt2.sys, one of their anti-kernel cheat drivers? Yeah, that was used, again, in a malicious manner. And of course, this level of invasiveness on your computer should never be allowed, okay? At least in my opinion. These basically rely... A lot of these anti-cheats that are now running in a lot of games basically are installed alongside your actual Windows kernel, your actual main operating system. And they sit at the lowest level of access that one could imagine, okay? You're basically giving carte blanche access for an entire anti-cheat access to your system. And the thing is, I necessarily don't believe that a lot of the big game publishers or developers are going to be using this to spy on users. I think that's a bit of an overblown conspiracy theory. However, like I said with that Genshin Impact example, when you develop software like this and it's so invasive, there is a good chance that it can serve as an attack by actual seriously malicious hackers, okay? They might want to find ways into it and find a way to hack millions of people around the world. Now, the thing is, a lot of these anti-cheat vendors have bug bounties and a lot of yearly, monthly testing, and they constantly fight against this exact, situation. But the thing is, you as a user have to be a little bit worried. Now, the other forms of cheats that I found floating around were like AI-based anti-cheats, okay? So for instance, literally on GitHub, there are entire world's best AI aimbots that tend to exist, okay? Literally designing aimbots that utilize the actual AI cores on a GPU like, well, not the RTX 9080, definitely something above that. But utilizing NVIDIA's CUDA, they can basically take a screen capture of a video game and utilizing AI, adjust your computer's mouse movements into actually hitting people right square in the face. So the thing is, what is the cure against this? How do you fight against something that is AI protected? How do you even know if somebody's using an AI aimbot, depending on how they've manipulated the AI into moving your mouse around? Maybe they can make it look realistic. Maybe they can be a closet cheater, somebody that necessarily doesn't even cheat all the time, only when they absolutely need it. This is becoming a world where obviously cheating in video games and the actual combating efforts against cheating have reached this fucking arms race where all of us are effectively allowing a lot of game companies and publishers to install some of the most invasive software just so we can relax and play some competitive online games. I mean, the fact that this is just freely available like this is insane. And people wonder, is it really Linux that's the issue? No, it's just cheaters utilizing whatever software or hardware like this to actually destroy online gaming every single day. So I got a really wild cheat for you guys over here, okay? This is a Zim Matrix. Now, you probably heard of names like Cronus Max or whatever. Basically, this tool allows you to use a keyboard and mouse onto a console. So Siege is a cross-play game, and again, this may not entirely be true the way that it's done, But one of the interesting ways of cheats that I've seen is apparently some users have been playing the console version of Siege. Now, the console version of Rainbow Six Siege is supposed to be played on a controller, right? This game has no actual keyboard mouse support. In fact, Ubisoft has a special type of anti-cheat called Mousetrap to detect people using a mouse on a console. So what'll happen is somebody who plays on a console, which again, the Siege is a tactical game. If you're going to be making headshots, recoil is very important to manage. And for console people who don't have access to a mouse, using the sticks, they actually lessen the recoil, from my understanding, on the actual system. So what happens is some scumbag gets this, basically takes advantage of the console lessened recoil and wins against you in a fucking gunfight. In fact, I would go as far as to say that a big chunk of high-level play on consoles at least is done through cheat devices like this. Because at that point, some of the people making headshots on you are just so fucking good at the game, it's actually unreal. And the thing about anti-cheat is one of the biggest issues with Linux in this regard is how does Linux support any form of anti-cheat? For Rainbow Six Siege, there is obviously actual BattlEye support on Steam. This was posted literally in 2021 by actual Steamworks development. They basically said BattlEye works on Proton, which is the construction, which is actually the translation layer Linux uses to, allow you to play Windows games on PC. This has reached a point where all a developer has to do is reach out to BattlEye to enable it for their title. No additional work is required by the developer besides that communications. It's basically caused, again, a lot of people to go onto Ubisoft's forums and say, hey, look, can you please enable this? And even evidence, like people have linked my video, for instance, it's important. Some people want to play this on Linux. Obviously, there's not a whole bunch of video gamers on Linux for Ubisoft to open that up. Now you might be like, well, Muda, if it's so easy, like you can just send an email and have it enabled, why doesn't every developer do this? Why doesn't Rockstar just do this? Well, apparently it's due to the fact that this version of anti-cheat on Linux is not the same really invasive version that we were talking about earlier on Windows. And it's because of this mismatch that a lot of cheaters, unfortunately, have ruined this for Linux gamers, or just gamers in general. Basically, by allowing anti-cheat to run lighter on Linux, a lot of actual scumbags have now been spoofing themselves playing underneath Linux so they can get that easier anti-cheat loaded into the game. And because they've got an easier anti-cheat, they have a whole extra repertoire of cheats that they can use against a video game. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has basically culminated to Linux basically at an actual standstill. How do you support a platform where, again, people are breaking the rules of online gaming and seemingly there's no real fix to it? Now, at least in Windows' case, right? Windows allows this level of granular anti-cheat access. And through a combination of verifying secure boot protocols, verifying drivers, a lot of these anti-cheats do work underneath Windows. And all gamers have to do is install one program and everything just works. For Linux, it's actually not so easy. One of the big problems with Linux is how open and free it is, okay? It's open, it allows you to modify the actual guts of a system and optimize it in ways that maybe even the maintainers of Linux have never thought of. It's this level of access, customization, insane patching that allows Linux to basically, run these games if anti-cheat were to be allowed. The general fear is that somebody could modify a kernel and basically bypass whatever these anti-cheats are trying to stop. And that has basically caused one of the biggest problems on this platform. Some of the most popular games, unfortunately, will never be supported underneath Linux unless this problem gets solved. It's crazy because video gaming underneath Linux now isn't a situation of will this game run? A lot of games run. Rainbow Six Siege runs underneath Linux just fine. It's just the anti-cheat that prevents people from actually connecting to a match online. Most of these games work pretty well. New games that come out work pretty well underneath Linux, as good as they do on Windows. It's just the fucking anti-cheat is the problem. And the thing is, the cheaters that are actually supposed to be targeted will never actually be stopped. Cheating is still such a massive problem in games like Rainbow Six Siege that even with all of these crazy vectors designed to stop cheats, You still see people aimbotting, looking through walls, doing suspicious activities. It's just that obviously if they were to have no protections, the game would be completely fucking unplayable. And this goes for pretty much every game in the entire, online gaming circuit, okay? Whether you're a Call of Duty, whether you're an Apex Legends, whether you're a Grand Theft Auto, whether you're Counter-Strike, whatever, okay? This is a huge problem from everyone. Even with Counter-Strike, people that I know play it on FACEIT. They play it on more superior anti-cheats compared to Valve's VAC because they just want a fucking experience not riddled by an aimbotter, spinbotter, somebody that can look through walls, insane shit. Now, look, there could be one fix to this, and one of the reasons that I'm kind of thinking Steam OS is not released right now is really think Valve is trying to cook up some way to have one specific version of Linux that could possibly support anti-cheats. The only way this situation can really work, in my opinion, is to have one Linux kernel that all developers agree is good. One kernel that can be verified at boot time to not be tampered with, and every single publisher and developer in the world just agrees that's the only distribution or Linux kernel we allow our multiplayer games to run on. And that's really the only fix that I can see. Now, is every game company gonna get on board with Valve or Steam or anything regarding this? That's still a question that I think people need to really answer, right? Linux is not a massive community right now. It sounds massive if you look at the Linux Reddit or if you watch some popular YouTube videos, but in reality, you're looking at an accounting error by Microsoft standards in terms of market share. Linux does have to grow, but the problem with growth is when some of the most popular games are actually barred from using this operating system, how are you going to convert people who just aren't purely single-player oriented gamers? I love playing single-player games, I really do, but I love to play some multiplayer games with the boys from time to time. I've been playing Siege for the last 2 weeks and actually really been enjoying it. And the fact that I need a separate computer is actually just annoying. I wish it could all run underneath Linux, but the problem with that, of course, is the anti-cheat situation. Linux is just too fucking good and open sourced for its own self to support some of these anti-cheat solutions that, unfortunately, regardless of what people can say, are somewhat needed to prevent the amount and spread of cheating on the platform. People have said use things like server-sided anti-cheats or AI counter anti-cheats, and it just doesn't seem completely feasible from a development perspective. But yeah, Linux has this one problem, and honestly the only solution I see is if sometime this year, when Valve releases that SteamOS for public consumption, if somehow it comes with some level of assurances, at least to developers, that as long as it remains untampered, we should be able to run all of your anti-cheated games right there. But that's big hopeful message. That's being really hopeful right there, okay? That's me just actually like wishing upon a star. Hopefully that's the way that it gets handled, but this problem really does need to actually be addressed because it's kind of weird to be supporting and promoting Linux, knowing full well that obviously one of the biggest criticisms is from people that, comment on these videos is, I can't play my game. That's a valid criticism. I can't tell you not to play a certain game. Some of these multiplayer games, some of these games are actually really fun, and there's no good reason why you should be prevented just because some piece of shit hacker ruins it for effectively everyone. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.